Papa John Schnatter was once the trusted, smiling face of a multi-billion-dollar pizza empire, but one leaked phone call of him using a racial slur destroyed his company and reputation forever, and his response to the backlash could not have been worse, claiming that he spent nearly 2 years in a sort of racist rehab to stop himself from saying the slur.
And we've had 3 goals for the last 20 months to get rid of this N-word in my vocabulary and dictionary and everything else.
And although this could be one of the worst ways to address a controversy in history, and there is no excuse for using a slur, John constantly tried to convince the world that this was all a calculated setup by people who wanted him exiled from his company. And when you hear the full story, he might not seem that crazy. There are even a small number of OG Papa John's fans who think he is innocent and are campaigning to reinstate him as CEO. One thing everyone agrees on is that the pizza quality was much better when he was still in charge, because today they have seemingly abandoned their promise to make better pizza with better ingredients. Today we are going to assess the crash and burn of John Schnatter's career and reputation to determine if it was all a calculated setup. John Schnatter quickly developed a reputation for being a ruthless, no-nonsense businessman, but to compete with giants like Domino's, Pizza Hut, and Little Caesars, you aren't necessarily going to thrive by being a nice guy. Ironically, his persona to the public was the happy-go-lucky, trustworthy spokesman for the company, which created a difficult-to-manage dynamic between who he actually was and who the public thought he was. John proved his entrepreneurial skills when he saved his father's business from going bankrupt. Mix Lounge in Jeffersonville, Indiana was a local tavern that was desperately in need of a new business strategy in the early 80s, so John took over.
We cleaned the pool tables up, we cleaned the food up, we put handsome bartenders behind the bar. We had a euchre tournament on Thursday. We had a little Kings night on Tuesday. We had a pool tournament on Sunday. Just from the promotion to the food to, we were doing like $2,000 a week, and within 3 months we were doing $10,000 a week and doing $1,000 a week in pool table revenue.
And while John has said that fixing the bar was a dream, he actually hated the idea of running bars for a career. I didn't like the bar business. I didn't like all the fights, all the cussing, the drinking, but I loved running the business. John's real obsession was pizza. He fell in love with it while working as a dishwasher at a local restaurant called Rocky's Sub Pub.
And I was washing dishes at Rocky's, and I hated washing dishes. And so you weren't allowed to make pizzas unless you were a Fondrisi, Joe, John, or Frank Fondrisi. So they got a good write-up in the scene. The thing took off. And sure enough, I got promoted from washing dishes to making pizzas, and that's when I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Schnatter brought his father's bar back from the dead, paid off the $60,000 in debts, and started making pizzas in a broom closet to sell to the customers. The customers loved the pizza, and the demand got so high that John purchased the shop directly next door and established the very first Papa John's location. John was a 21-year-old dreamer who was willing to work until he could no longer stand. He was always thinking of ways to make a better product as fast as possible for the best price, like when he upgraded from Baker's Pride ovens that could make him $1,000 in a day to conveyor ovens that could make him $1,000 per hour without breaking a sweat. Once the first Papa John's location was earning $9,000 per week in revenue, John's confidence turned into what he even admits was borderline delusion.
I'm all pumped. I'm ready to go. I'm excited. We go down to Domino's, which is about 3 miles down the road in Grants Plaza. I walk in there. I'm 22 years old.
Sure.
We're doing 9,000. Yeah. I said, what are you doing a week? He said, we're doing 6,000 a week. And I just basically looked at the guy and I said, we're going to kick your ass in the whole world.
You said that.
Basically.
22 years old.
How I thought with one store, because we were whooping them in Jeffersonville, Indiana, we were going to beat them. But I thought that way, which is crazy.
John strategically stole the best parts of other great pizza chains to make Papa John's the best of them all. He liked the cheese from Mr. Gatti's Pizza. He liked the sweetness of the Greek's Pizzeria sauce, as well as how they fulfilled a large volume of orders. He studied a local bakery to learn how to get his crust perfect. And he was even an employee at Domino's to learn how to optimize the process from order to kitchen assembly line and then out the door. It was this obsessive need to make the best product possible, along with a cutthroat business attitude, that allowed him to scale from one store to 5 to 10 to hundreds of locations.
I think resilience
and persistency beats genius and intellect every time. Let's say you want to be a dentist. Sooner or later, there's going to be a dentist that was a dentist before you were a dentist that has made it. Well, human nature, then they start playing their golf. Then they start having their poker game on Tuesday night. Then they start closing alphas on Friday. And what it does, it gives a young entrepreneur like you that's a striving dentist that wants to be like the other dentist, it gives you that incentive. Sooner or later, if you outwork them, you're going to take advantage of the guy on the golf course. And they all get fat and happy. And so I call it soft. The concept of sitting on the couch, eating Doritos, watching TV, or drinking beer or Cokes, what a waste of life.
Maybe the big three pizza franchises doubted that Papa John's could become a real threat, and he was comfortable with being the underdog. However, in 1993, everything changed. Papa John's became a publicly traded company, and after their IPO, they generated $25 million in investment capital, which was plenty of money to open thousands of locations across the United States. This is where the real takeover began. Unlike competitors who used mascots or attractive logos to promote the brand, John made himself the official spokesperson of Papa John's. He came off as humble, hardworking, and honest.
He commissioned independent taste tests. Papa John's won big time. Maybe that's because our sauce is made with fresh-packed, vine-ripened tomatoes. Pizza Hut uses remanufactured paste.
Anybody can claim to make a better pizza, but it's you, the consumer, who've decided.
The advertisements just kind of plainly said, we're better because people think we are better. It's that simple. But Pizza Hut was not happy with these comparisons. They sued Papa John's, but ultimately lost in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, which ruled that the slogan was puffery. The court said Papa John's claims weren't literally false, and thus didn't violate advertising laws. But how much validity was there to the better ingredients slogan?
What really makes the ingredients from Papa John's better than those of the competitors? How do you really have better ingredients that make better pizza?
I think you say it this way: better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. Another good question. You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. The reason our ingredients are better is because they cost more, and the reason they cost more is because they're real.
Well, it is true that none of the ingredients used were frozen, and every single pizza was made practically from scratch. Employees do everything in the store besides making the dough. The dough was hand-stretched and formed for each order. None of the produce or chicken products on a Papa John's pizza is older than 7 days in the store, all of which is kept in a 36-degree cooler. Pork and beef products spend no more than 12 days in the same cooler. So yes, you could call the pizza fresh, but that still doesn't exactly clarify the quality of the ingredients. But Papa John's strategically keeps that a secret. You see, if you look on their website, you will see a simplified version of their ingredients they believe sound clean or natural. In the US, food manufacturers can legally omit certain additives if they are considered processing aids or present in trace amounts. That means Papa John's could have tons of sub-ingredients like anti-caking agents, emulsifiers, stabilizers, or preservatives that they don't legally have to disclose. Melanie Warner of US News tried to investigate what makes their ingredients better. When I called Papa John's customer toll-free number, I was told that for additional information on allergen or nutritional info, I should leave a message with Connie Childs, who would return my call the next business day. I left 2 messages, but Connie never called. Public relations wasn't much help either. My emails and voicemails went unanswered. Ironically, most people seem to agree that it isn't actually the pizza that got Papa John's famous. It's their garlic sauce that you dip the crust into, which was an original recipe created at the very first store. These days, it is made with a slew of additives, mono and diglycerides, partially hydrogenated soybean oil, and the preservatives sodium benzenate and calcium disodium EDTA. So just because Papa John's used better ingredients didn't mean it was even considered remotely healthy. But Americans didn't care. By 1999, Papa John's had scored a 76 on the American Customer Satisfaction Index, above countless other fast food giants. Their stock price was peaking around $8 per share, had over 2,300 locations, earned over $800 million in total revenue. By all means, Papa John's was here to stay, and John Schnatter was set for life. And even though John portrayed himself as the humble hard worker, there is no doubt he was enjoying his hundreds of millions. Schnatter moved the corporate office into a luxurious new headquarters in Louisville, Louisville, Kentucky. He purchased a massive piece of land and built a castle on the outskirts of Louisville, complete with what literally looks like a city built underground.
So right now we're 1 story below ground level, and what you could see here, it looks like a little city. This is incredible with the windows, the door, but this is the garage. This is what's so remarkable about it. It kind of reminds me of the Forum shops at the Venetian with the painted ceilings, and the garage just keeps going down. I mean, what I would do for a garage like this.
Success gave John Schnatter power, and he wasn't shy about using it. He wasn't just the boss, he was the king, and he admits that he was extremely stubborn and stern with his power.
But I'm literally like, it's my way, the highway. If you didn't do it my way, you know, it was bad. It was a benevolent dictator with an attitude.
And although John's leadership and tenacity made for groundbreaking advancements in the company, such as being the first pizza company to accept online orders in 2001, ultimately his inability to do anything other than his way led to a steady decline in the business. After profits dropped 3 years in a row, the board decided it was time for John to step down. In 2005, they replaced him with Nigel Travis, former COO of Blockbuster. But Nigel only lasted 3 years as the head of Papa John's, and Schnatter stepped back into the CEO position almost immediately. Interestingly enough, in the press release announcing Nigel's departure, they wrote, "We are pleased that John has once again agreed to lead the company, albeit on an interim basis, until we can identify a permanent replacement." It's interesting that the company seemed to want to move on from John's leadership, but why? This is the guy who built and led the company to be worth over $1 billion. Is he not the most suitable man for the CEO position? Why did they want to replace him so badly? Because to the public, John seemed to be more in love with the company than ever. He remained the spokesperson of the company, appearing in TV commercials, advertising stunts like completing the world's highest pizza delivery in history at the top of the Sears Tower.
You say John! Papa John! Papa John!
And even throwing half-court shots in front of a sold-out Kentucky basketball stadium. This guy did so many commercials, you would think he might actually show up to your house and personally deliver you a pizza when you ordered from your local Papa John's.
Pizza! We got pizza! I'm John, with Papa John.
Oh my God!
Hey.
Papa's in the house!
How about some Papa John pizza?
And since the company was thriving due to his enthusiasm and the public's adoration for Papa, one wrong move could seriously damage everything. And as social media made it harder for any controversy to stay hidden, it was only a matter of time before we would find out why the leadership wanted him to step down years ago. That moment came in 2012 when John Schnatter criticized the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. He claimed that if the law went into effect, Papa John's would be forced to raise the price of their pizza by 11 to 14 cents per pie just to cover employees' health care. On an earnings call with shareholders, John said, "We're not supportive of Obamacare, like most businesses in our industry. If Obamacare is in fact not repealed, we will find tactics to shallow out any Obamacare costs and core strategies to pass that cost onto consumers in order to protect our shareholders' best interests." Of course, Papa John didn't support free healthcare because if Americans actually had access to doctors, they might finally realize his pizza is what's sending them there in the first place. The multimillionaire CEO who built his empire off blue-collar workers came off as tone-deaf, especially when he casually mentioned that franchise owners should just cut workers' hours instead of giving them health care. The controversy exploded into a massive news story.
Several people I spoke with said if it's going to cost them 3 extra cents to order a pizza so a Papa John's employee can have health insurance, they're fine with that. Others told me it's bad business.
Outrage sparked online. A viral Reddit post said, "There's plenty of places to get cheap pizza in the world. Anyone else ready to boycott Papa John's?" This was one of the first moments where the public began to see cracks in the Papa John persona. And what you will notice is that both of his next major controversies happened almost the exact same way. Keep in mind that his Obamacare comments were made during an earnings call in 2012. Earnings calls are often recorded and transcribed for transparency. These calls can be described as semi-private. They're not necessarily public-facing, but they're usually accessible to a wide range of people: investors, analysts, other employees. So if a CEO says something controversial during one of these calls, it only takes one person to share it with a journalist, blogger, or TV personality for the whole world to know about it. John couldn't help himself but let his personal politics bleed into the conversation. Obamacare was a deeply divisive topic at the time, and that's because any attempt to create a somewhat reasonable healthcare system in the US has been a massive hot-button issue. Then again, most of the opposers are not regular hard-working people, but rather rich oligarchs who are ultimately the ones that will lose billions in profits because they have been taking advantage of citizens for decades. John clearly valued corporate profits over what many see as a fundamental human right, and it may have upset someone who was on the inside listening to that earnings call, because the way this information exploded into the press so quickly felt almost surgical, as if someone who was on the other end of that call wanted the world to hear exactly how out of touch John really was. And this wouldn't be the last time something he said in what he thought was a private setting would make headlines, because in 2016 his political comments about the NFL would cause even more public outrage. In 2016, racial tensions in the United States were reaching new all-time highs. Many communities were still processing the acquittal of George Zimmerman, who shot 17-year-old Trayvon Martin while on neighborhood watch. We started seeing more funding for police body cams to ensure safety for both officers and citizens, and the divide led to the establishment and worldwide visibility of the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Americans weren't just frustrated, they reached a boiling point for generations of injustice, and millions were tired of staying silent. One man who joined the protest was San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who refused to stand for the pregame national anthem and instead chose to sit.
There's a lot of things that need to change. One specifically is police brutality. This stand wasn't for me. This stand wasn't because I feel like I'm being put down in any kind of way. This is because I'm seeing things happen to people that don't have a voice.
The NFL issued a statement regarding the protest saying, quote, "Players are encouraged but not required to stand during the playing of the national anthem."
Right away, everyone was divided on the issue. Some felt that Colin was perfectly in line to do what he did. There's no law demanding that you have to stand for the national anthem. However, others felt that Kaepernick had gone too far. The national anthem is traditionally there before the big game to salute those who died to defend the homeland. And to some, this was interpreted as an insult to those who made that unimaginable sacrifice. But this wasn't just one game. It was an ongoing protest that lasted well over a year. Many players in the NFL followed Kaepernick's lead, opting to kneel as a more respectful form of protest. The conversation around the players kneeling seemingly amplified every week, with many conservative NFL fans saying that the political focus was ruining the game. But NFL chief Roger Goodell was supportive of his players' First Amendment right.
Are you proud of Colin Kaepernick for taking this stand?
Listen, I support our players speaking out on issues that they think need to be changed in our society. We don't live in a perfect society, Matt. Our players have strong views about things. So I support our players speaking out against that. But that's what the focus should be on, the changes he wants to see in our society.
Right, but are you proud or does it make you nervous when you see it?
Well, I think when our players speak out and they feel strongly and passionate about something, I think it's a good thing for us.
But once again, Papa John Schnatter felt that politics were messing up his profits. And on yet another earnings call, John blamed the NFL's handling of the protests for Papa John's stock price falling around 10% in 2017. It's important to know that Papa John's had become the official pizza sponsor of the NFL in 2010, a partnership that heavily benefited them from the league's massive national visibility. Papa John's secured national broadcast and marketing rights, and many of their stadiums sold their pizza. But to suggest that the NFL players' protests had any effect on Papa John's pizza seemed like a bold and bizarre take. He said, "NFL leadership has hurt Papa John's shareholders. This should have been nipped in the bud a year and a half ago. We're certainly disappointed that NFL and its leadership did not resolve the ongoing situation to the satisfaction of all parties this year and a half ago," he said in the earnings call. Good or bad, leadership starts at the top, and this is an example of poor leadership. Not only was John criticizing a powerful business partner in front of investors, but he also was aligning himself with a divisive political stance once again. His comments sparked backlash from multiple sides. Some thought he was unfairly blaming the NFL for his own incompetence as CEO. Some saw him as biting the hand that feeds him, him, as the NFL was massive exposure for the pizza chain. But ultimately, many saw him as extremely insincere, delusional, and possibly racist, unwilling to support Americans who are exercising their First Amendment right in solidarity for Black Americans. As you can imagine, the backlash for John's comments came in full force. The controversy even led to white supremacist groups endorsing Papa John's as the official pizza of the alt-right, a title the company quickly and publicly disavowed. But still, the damage was done. 12 days later, after the company's stock had dropped 12%, they took to Twitter to try to stop the bleeding. The statements made on our earnings call were describing the factors that impact our business, and we sincerely apologize to anyone that thought they were divisive. That definitely was not our intention. We believe in the right to protest inequality and support the players' movement to create a new platform for change. We also believe, as Americans, we should honor our anthem. There is a way to do both. This wasn't really much of an apology, but rather just a statement of things that we already knew. Once again, John's inability to keep his personal politics out of his professional life cost him and the company big. 1 month later, Schnatter resigned as CEO, but stayed on as chairman. Weeks later, a mutual agreement was met to terminate Papa John's as the official pizza sponsor of the NFL. They would be replaced with Pizza Hut. The company was going downhill fast, but still with a chairman's seat, John Schnatter still had power. But he would, for the third time, say something on a conference call that would officially destroy his reputation forever. After John's fight with the NFL, earnings were down by almost 50%. Brandon Roten, chief of marketing, felt it would be wise to reduce Schnatter's presence in TV advertisements, as well as reduce John's association with the company overall, since he was the sole reason Papa John's was ever in any controversy. It seemed like the company was looking to make John invisible, and he just couldn't handle the idea of being sidelined when he was responsible for all of Papa John's success. After months of arguments with his internal team, his executives sought a compromise to try to make everyone happy. In order to get things under control, the board made an agreement that John could stay on as chairman and still be the face of the company under one condition: if he accepted coaching from a PR firm called Oslin & Gage, operating under the ad agency Laundry Service. Papa John's hired Laundry Service for a new advertisement strategy, and Laundry Service brought in their PR team Oslin & Gage to specifically coach Schnatter on how not to destroy the brand any further, and the goal was to train him in modern media etiquette and contain his public outbursts, and ultimately leave his personal opinions on politics out of the pizza business. But during one of those training sessions between Laundry Service and John, he said something so reprehensible that the PR firm decided they did not want to help him anymore. On July 11th, 2018, Forbes published a headline that spread like wildfire. Papa John's founder used N-word on conference call, and the clip of the conference call was released.
What bothers me is Colonel Sanders called blacks niggers. I'm like, I've never used that word. And they get away with it.
This was now the third leaked phone call that made headlines. On the call, John and the PR firm were discussing his response to the NFL controversy. His suggestion that Colonel Sanders used to say the slur came off as deflective to his own offensive behavior. Sanders' grandson, Trig Adams, responded to John's comments saying, "He's a weasel. Because he's prejudiced, he's trying to say somebody else was too." Sanders had absolutely no prejudice against anybody. There were a few people that initially tried to defend John, saying that his use of the word was actually him calling out racism, which, even if it was, this was a terrible way to express it. Him claiming that he never used the N-word in the same breath that he just let the slur roll off his tongue seemed delusional. And in the same day news broke that John said the slur, he resigned from the Louisville University board. The Cardinals Stadium announced they would be removing the name Papa John's Stadium. The MLB cut all ties with the pizza chain, and Schnatter resigned as chairman of Papa John's. This was the official nail in the coffin for John's career and reputation. He issued an apology that nobody took seriously. News reports attributing the use of inappropriate and hurtful language to me during a media training session regarding race are true. Regardless of the context, I apologize. Simply stated, racism has no place in our society. But John didn't believe what he said in that apology. He actually did seriously believe that the context of this conversation was extremely important, and if the general public knew, they would believe he got set up. And honestly, the details do look a little suspicious. You also have to consider that just 8 days after Forbes published the racial slur controversy article, they released another article called The Inside Story of Papa John's Toxic Culture, which portrayed John as a controlling, vindictive leader who created a culture of fear and intimidation within the company. The article included anonymous accounts from former employees describing verbal abuse, sexual assault, and reinforcing that John wasn't just careless with his words, but toxic at his core. The details of both of these articles would require months of energy and effort to produce, so there is no doubt that Forbes choosing to release these articles within a week of each other was calculated. I want you to take note of the little details in this article that most people skip over, and that is all of the anonymous sources and them making claims that are almost immediately refuted. The article claims that John surrounded himself with loyalists by hiring his high school friend Tim O'Hearn as a powerful executive and his longtime associate Steve Ritchie as CEO, which created a bro culture at the top. Papa John's has effectively been a public company operated like it is privately owned, a veteran employee says. Nothing is happening there unless John wants it to happen. They also go on to say that female employees were mocked and asked if they were menstruating. Male executives made references to gangbangs and comments about whether women wanted to jump on the train. Schnatter disputed most of this story. Papa John's did not respond to repeated requests for comment. Ritchie, for his part, did not respond to a request for comment, and O'Hearn contested portions of the story. The language here is key. Disputed most of the story. Contested portions of the story. This allows Forbes to cover themselves legally while leaving the reader unaware of what is actually true or not. Like, here's a classic example of them trying to claim that John would cheat on his wife. One former executive says the married Schnatter would disappear for days on work trips, stirring suspicion that he was, quote, hooking up with girls. Schnatter denies this. So they make a random claim from an anonymous source, and then John denies it. So now it's up for you to decide if it's real. But in theory, they could make up anything with anonymous sources and just let John deny it. Ironically, they even tried to pit executives against him, but it didn't work. Schnatter remained chairman, but was relocated to offices 20 minutes away, where he fought for control, contesting everything the new CEO did, and forced board members to choose between him and his CEO. When Forbes asked Nigel Travis about it, he denied, stating, "Most of the time, John and I had a very cordial relationship." Here's another example. Over time, Schnatter started to visit the main campus more often to learn what was going on. He allegedly recruited Papa John's employees to spy on their colleagues. He read workers' emails, according to 2 sources with knowledge of the episodes, and sometimes conducted business from disposable phones. Schnatter denies that he accessed emails or recruited employees to spy on each other. Every claim they make is immediately refuted. They even had an extreme lack of evidence hinting at alleged sexual misconduct in the workplace, but published it anyways. During the trip, there was an incident with a 24-year-old female Papa John's marketing employee that resulted in a second confidential settlement and the employee's swift departure. 3 sources tell Forbes they know of additional settlements between Schnatter and women involving inappropriate conduct, though details could not be confirmed by publication time. A female employee says that Schnatter asked about her bra size and whether she'd slept with her previous boss, and that he never let her pass in a hall without giving her a hug. He denies this. It's going to sound like I'm vehemently defending the guy, but this type of reporting does seem hard to take seriously, especially from a major publication like Forbes. So there was an incident with a confidential settlement, but the details couldn't be confirmed and John Schnatter denied. So we don't know what happened, why it happened, who it happened to, or how it was resolved. So why was that information published? The most interesting detail most people skipped over was no sources cited in this article approached us. All were contacted directly. So a 30-year-old multi-billion-dollar company with thousands of employees watched their CEO get into multiple major public controversies and allegedly had created a toxic workplace of fear, spying, and misconduct, and yet nobody approached the media to tell their story, but rather the media came to them looking for the inside scoop. And even still, at John's lowest moment, they couldn't get one person out of the hundreds of thousands of people that worked for Papa John's to publicly confirm any of their claims. But the general public did not focus on these details. To most people, John was a racist, a toxic ruler of a pizza empire, and possibly a assailant, which is why most people thought he absolutely lost his mind when he started publicly claiming that he was set up and that the day of reckoning will come, as he was now on a campaign to destroy the company he built for 30 years.
I would just say, stay tuned. The day of reckoning will come. The record will be straight.
Why not set the record straight now? I mean, what is it about the record that's not straight?
Stay tuned.
How soon will that happen?
Stay tuned. Sooner than later.
This is actually really sad. He looks like he's on the verge of a mental breakdown and a path to insanity, all because of a pizza. The general public just laughed him off. They didn't know all of the complicated nuances of the situation. Even animators like Meat Canyon couldn't help but spend hours recreating the painful interview.
The day will come. Judgment will be made. You will scream, but they will fall upon deaf ears. Cheese and bread will be the cornerstone of this utopian future. I will cover the world with my passion.
And every time John tried to defend himself, he just made it 10 times worse.
I mean, again, you have a public board that paints its chairman complicit, passive, or active. They paint the founder as a racist. They know he's not a racist. It's just unbelievable. And I used to lay in bed just going, how did they do this? And we've had 3 goals for the last 20 months to get rid of this N-word in my vocabulary and dictionary and everything else because it's just not true. Figure out how they did this and get on with my life.
John didn't realize how stupid he looked that he was claiming to be set up and falsely painted as a racist, and in the same breath saying that he had to spend 20 months removing a racial slur from his vocabulary. The ironic part about all of this is that the controversy started with Papa John's executives forcing him to do PR training, and every time he spoke to the media, it was clear that he still desperately needed more PR training. But it was now 2 years after the racial slur controversy, and he was hell-bent on convincing the world that the laundry service agency manipulated him into saying something racist. John also thought the best thing to do was release the full conversation he had with the agency, saying that the public deserved the full context. And I listened to the full, unedited, hour-long conversation, so here's the context. In May of 2018, a private conference call between John Schnatter and the laundry service appointed PR firm was recorded without John's consent. In this meeting, they were planning for John to go on a press run, which included an interview with Stephen A. Smith, as well as a few podcasters, so John could clarify his comments about the NFL kneeling situation and ultimately apologize. John wanted to do this because he found out that his franchisees' businesses were suffering due to the world thinking he was racist for criticizing the NFL players for kneeling. On this phone call, the laundry service representatives were essentially simulating an interview. They asked John to speak freely about how he actually felt about the NFL kneeling situation, and then they gave him feedback on his choices of words, guiding him on what to say, what not to say, and how he can still remain true to his values while not making himself and the company look worse.
The NFL situation is not good for anybody, in my opinion, and I would have said it differently, so that in a way, certainly not to defend anybody that's kneeling, but to not further inflame the situation which I despise, which is the division of the country. That's how I would say it. Is that gonna hurt you guys?
I don't think it will hurt us, but I do think, if possible, we need to come up with some way to say that I would have acknowledged how the reason that people were protesting being an important thing we have to fix in our society, something like that.
Yeah, I think you lead off with exactly how I said it in the meeting. I wouldn't change what I said, but I would change how I said it.
And then what I mean, I can say that. What do I mean by that? You tell me. Yeah, what I mean. How would I say it differently?
All we can just give him.
I think you would have given more explanation or call out exactly who you were targeting or call out exactly what you were referring to so that it didn't get misconstrued.
So you would say, listen, this has nothing to do with race. This is all about the Dell.
All about the NFL and the issues and how it impacts business and sponsors and things of that nature had absolutely nothing to do with race.
As you can hear, they are talking strategy. Say this, don't say this, say it like that, etc. Now they went back and forth talking in circles for 40 minutes, and it's for one very simple reason. John was not actually sorry for his comments. He didn't agree with the kneeling. He didn't agree with the NFL not putting a stop to it, and he still felt that the NFL hurt Papa John's sales. He literally thought and said in this conference call that the NFL players kneeling was destroying the NFL and all of the brands associated with it. So John going on this planned media tour to talk about this NFL controversy all over again was not to try to express an honest apology. It was to try to carefully manufacture a new response that would be more acceptable for the public while not feeling like he was actually going against his values.
Yeah, when I talked to Fred Smith, Peyton Manning, the Redskins, the Cowboys, I said, listen, you guys have got to lose. This is no good for anybody, any of us. And then to Steve's point, I said, we got to find, 8 or 9 leaders in the country that are level-headed, not going to fly off, that will sit down with the players and get them what they want. At the same time, not, destroy the league, destroy the players' future income, destroy sponsors, destroy the fan base, etc. So you might, I like Steve, that's the truth about it. Lose, win came up, and the whole time I was trying to get this matter resolved. So you might run with that one because that is the way I talk. Yeah, because you're trying to provide a platform that has solutions for the players, solutions for the owners, and solutions for all the partners that are associated with the league. And that's what the NFL had created for years, and they had an interesting issue here. And what you want to do is try to help for all folks that have different issues that they're trying to solve for. And it was a problem that could be solved that unfortunately the leadership was not there. And as a leader of my own company, I want to try to help another leader solve the problem. I think everybody took notes, so why don't y'all compare notes, and then let's get through the next day or two and get it to where I'm comfortable talking to, he's going to ask a tough question. He's going to go, how do you feel about kneeling? And, we got to find a good way of saying, well, I understand what they're trying to do, but I'm not sure that's helping anybody's cause.
Now, the PR firm, which we would ultimately find out, just straight up thought he was wrong. Now, PR firms are supposed to remain unbiased. Since they were being paid by Papa John's, it's their job to handle the public relations without inserting their own personal feelings into John's response. In a way, it's kind of like a softer version of a defense attorney. Like, at the end of the day, someone does have to defend somebody who's committed reprehensible crimes. And the PR firm was trying as hard as they could to figure out a plan for John to reapproach the media without making things worse. But John just kept rambling, and the PR firm was getting frustrated. It would make their job easier if he just said, I was wrong, I understand my comments came off as racist, I can assure you that is not who I am, but I've taken the necessary steps to educate myself, and I apologize to the NFL and the players who were peacefully protesting. But he didn't want to do that because he didn't believe that. And when you listen to the call, you can tell he was pissed off that he felt like he needed to censor himself because he thinks Papa John's does so much for the NFL. And at the very end of the call, he even questioned if he needed to clarify his words at all, essentially defeating the purpose of this entire hour-long meeting.
Do you all really think it's a big deal to rectify what's been said? I certainly think we need to change the narrative. That's out there. I agree. I just wouldn't wait 8 months after the fact. Yeah. That's what I would have done. I was like, Jesus Christ, if you're me, gets counted, and we gave this NFL $40 million a year. We're the number 1 brand, and now all of a sudden we're dealing with this. It's crazy. So, anyway, we'll see. Up in New York, we made a decision. We're going to go out and get killed again, and then I don't have to worry about doing that. And I got to tell you, heaven forbid this company, they're not going to use me at all. After I'm looking at this research, I'm just not seeing how you're not tell the Papa John story and let them. What bothers me is Colonel Sanders called blacks niggas. I'm like, I've never used that word. And they get away with it. Yeah, we use the word debacle, and we get framed in the same genre. It's crazy. This whole thing's crazy. Thank you, man. All right, John. All right, y'all. I'll see you. Thanks, John.
By this point, the laundry service reps were officially pushed over the edge and abruptly ended the call. They spent an hour trying to coach him, only for him at the very end to basically say, "Why are we even doing this?" And then have the audacity to say that Colonel Sanders used to say the racial slur and that John never says it, even though he literally just said it. After the conference call ended, the recording did not. And you can hear the laundry service representatives debriefing where they express how frustrated they were and actually how they wanted him to now get exposed.
I hope he gets fucked. I really do.
And a lot about him. They were very revealing.
Yeah, I mean, that's already all been revealed to me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go out and talk.
Yeah. Because he can't take even the most, like, simple, like, just acknowledge the fact, like, we find some empathy for the people why they're doing this protest. Like, he wouldn't even pick up on that. Yeah.
But you can't just say that.
Did he actually say it?
Yeah, no.
I
missed that as well.
Literally just said, he said, Colonel Sanders said that.
He said he called him that word and he's fine. But all I did was say the Baco. And he has no problem saying that, but he can't say that he said anything wrong. Yep. It's crazy.
It's like, but the thing is he's all about, like, money. And to me, like, the players saying that they're still going to protest because they're saying this is a real issue. It's not about money.
No one has said to him, dude, are you really not getting it? You are out of touch. Everyone, including us, are pandering a little bit to the man. No one is saying, you are actually out of touch. You cannot say these things. I get your empathy now about that you find it horrible.
He knows.
Yeah.
I don't think he cares.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then he doesn't give a shit. Okay.
I just wanted to go and speak the truth. And I wanted to write down the bullet points and then let him go. We just have to make sure it's an hour-long conversation. Yeah. So that he says here. He's going to come out. He can't control it.
I want the person interviewing him to say, even though he knows to not say those specific answers, I want that to come out too. Like, I want that to come out now, even though he's spiraling. Yeah, like, I want whatever we recorded to be like the actual interview.
I already spoke to John Orwell and said he gets it. He said he'll only do it if he can ask all the hard questions and really talk about all the hard issues, and he'll do it for an hour on Twitter Live, and he'll let people ask questions.
As you can tell, the PR firm was fed up. They straight up felt that John was wrong, that he could not accept it, and that he was a racist. And now actually, instead of helping him, they planned on setting up interviews where he would be asked really tough questions, hoping he would speak exactly like he did on the private phone call to expose himself to the world that he is a racist. But they actually just sped up the process. They didn't schedule any interviews and instead leaked the audio of him saying the N-word to the press out of resentment. And John tried as hard as he could to express to the public that he wishes he didn't say the actual word, but rather the phrase that represents the slur.
The context was used as a contrast. I never used the word. This guy uses the word. I never used that word. It was to make a point.
Do you think that it's possible to not have racist intent but still have racist impact?
I think if you use a racial slur, you have ill intent. You know, I think if you cite the word as an example, don't use that word, I don't think that's ill intent. I think that is anti-racist. Absolutely.
Would you agree that the N-word, the real word, is arguably the weightiest word in the English language? And I'm wondering if you felt that only in the aftermath, or if at the time when you said it, you knew the power of actually stating the N-word, because if you had just said the N-word, we probably wouldn't even be talking about this right now.
Right. I think the reason I was using it in the context and the reference I was is because I despise the word. Don't use that word. I never use the word. If I had over it again, would I not use the word? Absolutely.
Do you think that you exercised good leadership by using the actual word?
If I had it over again, I would use the N-word instead of saying Colonel Sanders actually calls black people the word. I definitely would use the N-word.
So was this all a setup? Well, there is nuance to consider. Yes, the media expose seems to have been set up by the laundry service PR firm and Forbes. However, John was not pressured or manipulated into saying anything racist. That was his own volition. He expressed his true feelings about the NFL protests ad nauseum, and he chose to just randomly say a racial slur, unprovoked, and pass it off as criticism of a dead guy. But John Schnatter relentlessly pursued a lawsuit against Laundry Service, and after battling for over 4 years, Laundry Service tried to get the case dismissed, but the judges kept ruling in John's favor. Laundry Service leaked a partial, deceptively edited excerpt from a private coaching session to Forbes, intentionally distorting comments Schnatter made against racism and reversing their meaning to harm the Papa John's founder and the iconic brand he built over 34 years. Laundry Service subsequently provided a doctored tape of the conference call to Papa John's International with several crucial minutes deleted. The case was ultimately settled out of court in John's favor. So yes, John was set up in regards to how this information got to the public. Yes, he is a terrible communicator, but whether or not he is actually racist is up for you to decide. And even 6 years after he has been removed from any and all operations from the company, sold off a lot of his stock, he's still doing podcasts and interviews today, being extremely critical of the Papa John's brand, claiming that the quality of the Papa John's pizza has gone significantly downhill since he left the company.
Gone from a hand-tossed dough to where they now do it with a machine, so they actually like a patty, place it down, and so you lose that authentic, really where the dough kind of rises. But this still wouldn't be an 8 pizza. This would be probably a 7 pizza, maybe
7 out of 10. You're saying
7 out of 10. If it's not an 8, you're not supposed to serve it. This product wouldn't be an 8 either, but at least it's got toppings on it. But again, see, there's not toppings out to the edge. But if I'd have been CEO and these would have come, this would have been a huge disappointment. These would have been sub 7 pizzas. Today, they're probably, what I've seen of Papa John's the last 16 months, these are actually some of the better ones I've seen. But again, you're not going to be able to differentiate between a Pizza Hut and a Papa John's. But let's see what the other 2 players come in. That's another thing I think they've done. I think they've definitely changed the crust, but it doesn't taste the same.
Would you
I don't know if they changed the sauce, but something of the product doesn't taste.
The one from Papa John
doesn't taste like the original pizza.
Doesn't.
They've changed the recipe. They've done something. I don't know exactly what they've done. I know they changed the dough recipe so they could make it softer to spin it out with the machine. But that doesn't taste like our sauce. So I don't know if they went to a paste sauce or if they put something else in there, but it does not taste like the original recipe, in my opinion.
John's continuous attempts to clear his name seem less about genuine growth and more about personal vindication, driven by a bruised ego and inability to accept responsibility for his own actions. Then again, it's easy to see why he would be resentful when the business he dedicated 35 years of his life building got destroyed by a calculated setup from people he hired to protect him.